I miss the old days.
Let's go back. Back to the beginning.
Nostalgia trip.
Welcome, Stephanie. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you. Hey, everybody. I'm so excited to be here, so thank you for having me. Anna and I go way back. We actually met in kindergarten.
Yes.
I think at Kindergarten Roundup. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think that is correct, yes.
And we have been really, really close friends for over 20 years now,
Yes,
which is
literally
crazy to say out loud.
Yeah, it makes me feel really old. I'm not 30 yet. That's just an example of how long we've been friends, how much of our lives we've been friends.
We have been friends for a very long time and closer to sisters, honestly. Anna has come on many family vacations with me. Yeah.
You are my sister on Facebook, like our friendship status on
Really? Is it still like
Facebook,
that?
that
I love
sisters,
that for
I
us.
I think it might be. I think it might be. So I would say Stephanie in herself is a nostalgia trip for me. You've been a nostalgic part of my life. We've shared many memories together. And today we're going to talk about the memory of the album Metamorphosis by Hilary Duff. So Stephanie, can you go ahead and just tee up this
absolutely.
album for us?
I'm happy to. So when Anna approached me about joining the podcast to talk about something nostalgic, it was tough to pick just one thing because there's so many things that come to mind. I was between Super Mario Sunshine on the GameCube and Hilary Duff's Metamorphosis, just for the record. But I think what
Both
really
excellent
made me choose this is when I think of an album from my childhood. And I mean childhood. I think we were maybe 7 or 8 when this came out. Like, we were relatively young.
Yes.
And when I think of music from that era, I feel like this album is just the first thing that comes to mind for me. Like, I picture the cover art of that CD.
Which we're going to talk about. I want to discuss the cover art, but we're going to come back to that. So yes. I also picture it. And yes, just to frame up the history of the album a little bit. So like you said, it was released in 2003. So we were 7 when it came out because it was earlier in 2003. And I thought this little tidbit was very interesting and just says a lot about why this album means a lot to the both of us. There was a national marketing survey done in July of 2003. And Hilary Duff was the most famous pop star and celebrity with 6 to 8-year-olds in the country.
Wow.
So we were the target audience for Miss Hilary Duff back in 2003. That marketing clearly worked because I was very obsessed with Hilary Duff. I was very obsessed with this album. I mostly equate this album with our friendship because you owned this album. I don't think I owned it on CD. I think I listened to it like adjacently with you because we just spent a lot of time together. Definitely like associate this with you. But I really did want to first talk about the album cover. We've discussed this on a previous episode too with some other album covers that I like to discuss. If you really look at the album art, this woman looks so unhappy to be on this album cover. She's giving nothing. She's giving nothing.
It's a blank stare.
It is.
Like, it's really
the blankest
a blank
of stares.
stare.
But she also looks great. It's so 2003. It is so 2003. The blue background with like the photoshopped wind-blown hair in front of it. It's just fantastic. The earrings. She's wearing like these intricate earrings. It's just fabulous, don't you think?
I have it up in front of me right now just to like fully admire how early 2000s this album cover really is.
And the font choice.
So it's like Comic Sans, but a little bit worse.
It's like spray paint Comic Sans. I would encourage all listeners to just quickly Google the Metamorphosis album cover because it's worth the visual. So going back to the nostalgia part of this album, do you have any specific memories that come into mind of you like listening to this as a child or like the way that you listened to it back in 2003?
Yes, I do. I actually have like a really specific memory tied to this album, and I feel like that's why I wanted to choose this as my piece of nostalgia.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned, I did own this album. 7-year-old me was really excited about owning this album.
Yes.
I don't remember how I bought it or where I bought it, or if I'm sure my mom probably got it for me.
Sure.
But yes, I had this CD. And of course, this is back in the time before iPods. So
Yes.
I listened to it on two different ways. I had like a CD player that was like a speaker
Yep.
that I could listen to it on. And then I also had a portable CD player that was hot pink.
As one did. Mine was blue, but yes.
Yep. Hot pink portable CD player with, you had the headphones that connected with the wire. And I specifically remember when this album was popular, probably sometime that fall of 2003 or the winter. Anytime we had indoor recess in third grade, probably even outdoor recess. I don't know what we did during recess in third grade. We were probably together.
I could not tell you what we did. I don't remember.
I just remember breaking out my CD player, putting in this album, and jamming out to So Yesterday and Come Clean. And I remember specifically like mouthing the words to the song because I knew them. And I thought it was like super cool that I was doing this. And I specifically remember, am I allowed to name names on this or no?
Yeah, let's do it. Name the names.
I think it was Jacob Welch in third grade that was like, why are you mouthing along to the song? Like, that makes no sense. Like, you're not singing it. Like, you look kind of stupid. And I had a crush on him at the time. And I was just like,
I hope that somehow this gets back to Jacob Welch. And I hope that he finds amusement from that memory because it's really funny.
Like, the fact that I still remember it. I mean, I think it was him. I guess this was so long ago. But it was some boy in third grade I had a crush on that was like, you kind of look stupid. So yeah, during indoor recess in third grade, I would listen to that album and I would pretend that I was Hilary Duff. And I remember in third grade, I had Mrs. Prelsnick as a teacher.
Yep.
And it was one of those rooms where you had like the dividers between the two rooms. And I feel like that's just like such a core early 2000s nostalgic thing.
Yes,
when you
like
think of like a classroom.
The structure of a classroom back in 2003 was very specific.
Yeah, it really was. So that's what it really took me back to. And I mean, of course, Hilary Duff was the coolest thing ever to 7-year-olds back then,
Literally.
the data that you found shows.
Yes, literally the coolest person ever. And I was going to say my specific memory that I have for this album is being in Walmart. I don't know why I remember this. And I don't go to Walmart really anymore, but I did a lot as a kid because there was the one Walmart in Charlotte and that was like where everyone got their groceries because we're from a really small town. And I was at Walmart and I remember just a wall installation of this album. Like there was just so many Metamorphosis CDs laid out in front of me on this big like cardboard cutout thing. And I think it was in the clothing section, like the girls' clothing section at Walmart. And it's just really implanted in my brain. And I feel like, I mean, they don't really do stuff like that as much anymore, maybe for like a Taylor Swift album. But I feel like generally they don't do like those big installations for new music releases anymore because everyone just gets everything digitally. So I definitely feel like that's a very nostalgic thing.
I love that. I can totally picture that at the Walmart that we grew up going to.
Absolutely.
Or like the poster. I'm sure there was a poster of the cover art.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm surprised I didn't have it, honestly.
Same.
Let's talk about Miss Hilary Duff a little bit before we dive a bit more into the album specifically. So, like you said, we were both super obsessed with her. Who was it in our age group? She was a huge star before she made this album. She was already in Lizzie McGuire at the time, which was like one of the biggest kid shows on television. And the reason, apparently, that she made this album was because her sister, Haley Duff, who was also like kind of in the Disney sphere. Like, I also kind of knew who Haley Duff was. Do you remember Haley Duff?
Yes, it definitely rings a bell.
Yeah, like she was like a thing, but not the level of thing that Hilary Duff was. But her sister, had a recording contract. And it sounds like Hilary was like, I want to do that too. And so she got a recording contract and decided to start making albums. And I think what's interesting about this album specifically, this kind of came before it seemed like every Disney star also made an album. Like, you know, now it's like Demi Lovato and Miley Cyrus and Selena Gomez, all of those people, they do all of the above. And it's just kind of normal now, I think, with a lot of child stars to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Hilary Duff was a bit of an innovator in that space, and she was one of the first to really do that. Other things that she did at the time, Cadet Kelly, Agent Cody Banks.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, same. So good. Like I said, huge star. We were all really obsessed with her. The Lizzie McGuire movie was like life-changing. So big, so important. I watched that movie so many millions of times. Another interesting tidbit that I found out about that movie was her sister sang the part of Isabella in that movie. So Hilary Duff doesn't sing both parts, even though they're supposed to be like, you know, like the same, like twinsies.
No way.
Her
Wow.
sister sings it. And the tea that I found when researching this album is there is speculation, allegedly, I'm going to say allegedly, that her sister sang on some of her albums on behalf of Hilary Duff because she was a stronger singer.
Wow.
Yes.
That's some tea.
It is some tea, isn't it? Hopefully I don't get sued. I said allegedly. I don't know if it's real. But I just read it on the internet, so it's probably not real. Anyway, were you a big Lizzie McGuire fan also?
I was. I loved Lizzie McGuire. I will say, I feel like I was a bigger fan of the movie than the show.
Yeah.
Like, I was really into the movie.
Yes.
Loved the movie. I did watch the show, but I feel like in that time when the show came out, I'm trying to think of what other ones I was, like, really into.
We were a
'cause that
little
was Disney
young.
Channel, right? Yeah, we were
It
maybe a
was.
little young. I feel like The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody and, like, Hannah Montana was maybe a little bit more our
Yes.
age. But I did catch Lizzie McGuire, and I did watch
Yeah.
it every now and then.
I was pretty obsessed, but it definitely wasn't the same level as, like, the Hannah Montana years.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think we were a little young for that. But I feel like my real obsession with Hilary Duff more started first with the Lizzie McGuire movie and then with Cinderella Story.
Oh, wow. Yes. I was
Yes.
thinking about that earlier today when I was thinking about recording this episode. I'm like, a Cinderella Story. Like,
Which, if you recall, also features one of the first loves of my life, Chad Michael Murray.
you were obsessed with him, weren't you?
I was. He's beautiful. I don't deny it even now.
Did you watch One Tree Hill, like, just for him?
I would, like, put on the CW just to, like, casually watch it for him, but I couldn't even tell you what the show's about. I have no idea. But do you remember watching The House of Wax, that movie with Paris Hilton, because he's in it and I made you watch it with me?
Really?
I only
Oh my
wanted to see it for
gosh.
Chad Michael Murray. It's kind of a fun horror movie because Paris Hilton's in it too, but
Wait, I feel like I do remember that.
I
I
think we
definitely
watched it-
remember when you were really into him, though.
yes, yeah. This isn't a Chad Michael Murray episode, but I could talk about Chad Michael Murray also as an episode. But anyway, Cinderella Story was like major. That was very important.
Major.
I remember watching that movie at a sleepover with you probably multiple times. I feel like we both really
yeah.
liked that movie. I already mentioned Selena Gomez once, but she was in the sequel, if you recall. So again, Hilary Duff, blazing a trail. I don't remember.
She's a pioneer.
She really is, honestly. She so is. Okay, let's talk about the album, specifically. You mentioned 2 songs on the album already, which are So Yesterday and Come Clean. Those are the opening 2 tracks of the album. Arguably her most famous songs in general, I would say. Come Clean has the lyric, let's go back to the beginning. I feel like that's a very, like, nostalgic line. A lot of people still quote that.
Mm-hmm.
What are your favorite songs on the album? You mentioned those 2. Are there any other bangers for you? And also, have you revisited this album recently? Did you re-listen to it at all?
So I listened to it at work today as a way to just, like,
Excellent.
bring me back. And I will say, So Yesterday and Come Clean are definitely, like, the 2 standouts. I'm trying to think of the others I listened to.
Yes.
Metamorphosis, of course. Sweet 16 is
Yes.
a jam.
It kind of is. It kind of is. I noted that as well. It's kind of good.
Yes, that one's kind of good. But I feel like So Yesterday and Come Clean, it's hard to pick between the 2 in terms of which one is my favorite. I want to say So Yesterday, honestly. I think that was, like, when I was 7 years old and this came out, I think that was, like, my favorite song of the year at the time.
Amazing breakup song if you're 7 years old. Like, just the best. It just really hits different when you're young and in love.
And how
at-
old was
at
she
7
at this
years
time
old.
either? Like, I feel like...
I believe she was 16. 15 or 16 at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
So wise.
It's so wise, right? I loved this tidbit about So Yesterday. The premiere of the music video was hosted by AOL Music. That's like the most 2003 thing I think I could ever say in a sentence. Because what is AOL Music? Like, what is dial-up internet music? I just think it's so funny.
That's so funny. I didn't even know that was a thing.
So Yesterday, absolute banger. I think personally, Come Clean is my favorite song on the album. It just is still a banger. I don't want to hate on this album, But portions of it are quite cheesy, if we're being honest.
This is true.
Like Little Voice, I literally laughed aloud when I was listening to it. I mean, some of it's a little cheesy, but I will give it credit for just being really fun, like 2000s bubblegum pop. I don't think there's anything wrong with some fun pop music, and this album definitely is that.
100%. Earlier today when I was working, I'm not gonna lie, I had to skip through a couple of the songs. I don't remember which ones, but I skipped through a couple. I would say it's like half and half. Half are pretty cheesy, not the best. Half I can still jam out to. But I feel like the pure nostalgia of it, like I don't even care if the music isn't that great. Just the pure nostalgia of listening to it.
Agreed. Totally.
You know?
It's more
Awesome.
more like the overall journey of experiencing the music rather than like it being good music. It's fine. We're there for something else.
Yeah. And then you wonder, like, do I love this because it's great or do I love this because it's nostalgic?
A great question. I would say that's a great question for the show overall. Would you say that you love it because it's great, or do you love it because it's nostalgic?
Probably I love it because it's nostalgic.
Yeah, that's okay.
But I will say A for effort for Hilary Duff. She really did pave the way. But I agree. It is really like, I don't know if it's music's finest, but I love it.
I would agree. I also wanted to note the song The Math on the album. It's a song about math. It's like math about like the math of life. And the intro of the song just it goes so hard. It's like a metal intro. It's like a Paramore song from 2006. It goes so hard. And I was like, what is happening on this album? Like, why are some of these songs trying to be rock songs? And I looked up like the production team on the album, and it was the team who did Avril Lavigne's album.
No way.
Before this.
Really?
Did this album, did Metamorphosis. And I'm like, that checks out. I think that's the vibe she was going for. I don't know if it was achieved. But I can see it now that I've been told that. You know, it checks out.
I can see it. Hilary Duff is almost like the lighter version, where Avril Lavigne, like her music was maybe a little more moody, dark. They presented her as more of like an emo sort of vibe. But if you think about it, I mean, the timing is really similar. Around the same time, I also had Avril Lavigne's album, Skater Boy, Complicated.
That should be its own separate episode. Maybe we'll have to do another one and talk about Avril, because Avril was also significant in my childhood.
Is she still with the Nickelback guy?
I don't think so. I think they're divorced. I hope that that's wrong. I wish her well, but I think they may have separated. Another nostalgic thing that I was reminded of while doing some research on Miss Hilary Duff circa 2003 involves Lindsay Lohan, another absolute queen of our childhood. Apparently they had a love triangle with Aaron Carter.
Oh.
Which I kind of remember specifically from reading Tiger Beat magazine as a child, which honestly would love to do another episode discussing.
Oh, that's whole other episode.
Yes, whole other can of worms. So many Tiger Beats were read.
I loved those.
Yes, same. But I kind of remember that being a through line in some of the Tiger Beat magazines is their love triangle. And I believe Aaron Carter appeared on an episode of Lizzie McGuire. I vaguely remember that. I think he like sang a song in an episode of Lizzie McGuire. But apparently it was like quite the feud between her and Lindsay Lohan. And I thought that was very interesting of these young stars at the time.
Oh my gosh. Did he, I feel like I've seen this resurfaced in the news because of obviously the tragic news of Aaron Carter's passing.
Of course.
And there's been a little bit bubbling in the news about what happened between Hilary Duff and Aaron Carter. Was it that he supposedly, allegedly cheated on Hilary Duff with Lindsay Lohan?
I believe so. Ooh. I think that is what's happening here. So very and they were like 16 at the time.
I was gonna say, I feel like when we were kids, we thought they were so old, and now it's like we look back and they were literally like sophomores in high school age.
Which I want to discuss this a bit too. We talk a little bit more about Hilary Duff's history. She also dated one of the Madden brothers, Joel Madden from Good Charlotte, if you recall.
I remember
Good Charlotte.
Oh, love Good Charlotte. What's the dance floor song? I loved that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. What was that song called? Yes. So, loved Good Charlotte, another nostalgic band. That was her boyfriend after the Aaron Carter shenanigans. She dated Aaron Carter from 2001 until the love triangle situation with Lindsay Lohan in 2003. And then in 2004, she started dating Joel Madden. She was 16 and he was 25.
No.
Yes.
That's bad.
And Hilary Duff's mother announced the relationship in 17 magazine.
Oh my gosh.
Can you,
so she condoned
I feel like
this?
that.
Oh no.
I feel like that really frames up like 2004. Like it
Yep.
makes sense in 2004. And it relates to what you're saying. Like, I thought she was a whole ass adult. And she was
same.
not. She was a child.
That would never fly now. I mean, it's not right. It shouldn't have flown back then. But like hearing that out loud, I feel like when we were little kids, like we didn't think about it. Like we just assumed she was older, you know?
Yeah. No, I never thought about stuff like that as a kid. And I looked up to her and I definitely thought she was very mature, you know? And I never questioned that when I was a kid. So it's crazy to think about like her love triangle and all of this stuff being like in all of these magazines and all of these crazy things about her when she was 16 years old.
Oh my gosh.
You know? It's wild.
That's so wild. I couldn't even imagine all of that stuff being out about you, like being famous that young. And I'm sure this may be a topic of your conversation, so I don't want to beat you to it. But Hilary Duff is probably one of the least problematic Disney stars.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, she's had some very minor things. I looked up her like whole situation, you know, read the personal life section on Wikipedia and all that. Very little drama though, honestly. And she seems to have held her life together quite well as an adult. Seems to be doing really well for herself. I'm very happy for her. Unlike other stars, you know, didn't go to prison for a drug offense or didn't get any DUIs or anything like she's doing well for herself. She seems to always have really held it together. And you know, maybe that's chalked up to having a good support system or just having a good head on her shoulders. But absolutely, she really seemed to do a little bit better in that avenue than maybe some other child stars did, at least of our childhood.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, I would like you to Google Stuff by Hilary Duff. That was her clothing and lifestyle brand. And I looked up the logo and oh my God, I remember it. I hope you remember it too. Does that ring any bells for you?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Wait, this completely left my brain. But yes, I do remember this.
It was primarily carried at Target.
Oh.
I'm sure that I purchased an item from this because of how much I liked her.
Oh, I think I recognize one of these shirts right now with like, they almost look like iron-on designs. They're like shiny.
Amazing.
This really takes me back. Oh, there's like a flare jean skirt. It almost reminds me of, what was that brand? It was like something monkey.
Oh my God, the monkey brand. What was the
what
monkey
it was
brand? Monkey clothing brand 2000s. I must know. It was
But
called...
that's what this reminds me of.
Oh my God. Bobby Jack. Bobby Jack. Can we do a Bobby Jack episode? The amount of Bobby Jack clothing that I owned. I hope that anybody listening to this recalls Bobby Jack. Oh my gosh. I am looking up this shirt right now that says chocolate is my friend. And it's this monkey eating some Bobby drops and a chocolate bar. And I totally had this shirt.
You had a lot of those. We both had a lot of those.
I did. I'm a graphic tee girl. I still am. That has not changed.
Oh my God. Yeah, that could really be.
The clothing brands of the 2000s.
That could be its own episode. But her clothing to me is a little like a little punk edgy version of Bobby Jack.
Totally.
Oh my gosh. I forgot that she did this.
I've always had a little edge to my style. So it makes sense. It checks out. Kind of talking about that, you talk about things that were definitely most prominent in the 2000s and have fizzled out a little bit. You know, stars like Hilary Duff, Lindsay Lohan, these are all people who were definitely at the height of their powers in the early 2000s. They're all still working. You know, Lindsay Lohan just had a Netflix movie come out. Hilary Duff she wrote a book recently. She's definitely still working, but these people were all the most prominent back in the early 2000s. Do you have any thoughts on how we view these young idol type of stars who are no longer at the peak of their fame, like the way that we look at them in the cultural lexicon now?
Ooh, that's a really good question. When I think of like all the stars from High School Musical and like they were probably only 18 when all of this went, like they're all basically in their early to mid 30s right now.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of respect for the stars that, like, they hit their prime really young, and then I'm sure they feel a lot of pressure to probably stay young or, like, stay relevant.
Right.
And I kind of feel like with people our age, like, we're always going to have, like, a place in our heart for all of the stars that were super popular when we were little. Like, I love to see Lindsay Lohan starring in that Netflix movie, and I feel like that movie did really well because she's starring in it, and there's so many people our age. We want to see her succeed. Like, we want to see them succeed. I recently saw a picture online, and it was not like a meme, but, like, it was a picture of Hilary Duff looking really hot in a swimsuit because she looks amazing still.
She's got a great bod.
She's a great bod, and I think she's, like, 35, and someone captioned it, wow, like, she still looks good even at 35. And someone was like, 35 is young. Like, why are we like, she's not that old. Like, why are we talking about them like they're like 50, you know?
Right.
Which I thought that was crazy. I'm like, 35 is really not that old. They just were so famous so young, you know?
Right. No, it's so interesting. Like, how weird would it be if you were her and people were, like, nostalgic for you when you still feel like you're pretty early in your life, right?
Yeah. Right. Exactly. That's just, it's crazy. And I think of, too, like, I don't know if anything's happening with the High School Musical stuff, but when Vanessa Hudgens posted a picture in front of East High, and I think Zac Efron might have too, and everyone's like, oh my God, is there going to be another High School Musical where they bring back the original cast? Yeah. I love that type of thing. I don't know if other people, like other millennials, other people our age feel that way, but I kind of love it. Like when I haven't watched the reboot of iCarly, but I love that they did a reboot of iCarly where they brought back Miranda Cosgrove, and like, I just love the nostalgic for that because it was such a big part of our childhood. So
I agree. And I think you make a good point of specifically for like this group of stars that we are nostalgic for. I am rooting for them. Obviously, Lindsay Lohan had a real tough spell there, and, you know, her career was impacted because of it. And, you know, like Selena Gomez has been really open about having struggles, and, you know, all of these stars seem to have had some bumps in the road, but I'm definitely rooting for them because they meant so much to me when I was a kid. Which I'm sure is very strange for them. But, yeah, definitely wish them all the best. I feel like Hilary Duff's kind of just chilling, and I'm really happy for her about that. Like, she was in, like, a Hulu show recently, and, like, she's still working. She's booked and busy, and has a family and a husband, and I just think that's really nice. Like, I'm so happy for her.
Me too. I love that for her. I know, I feel like she's kind of staying on the down low. Like, we don't see too much of her, but it's
in a good way. You know what I mean? Also,
yeah, exactly.
Her Architectural Digest home tour, very nice. She has a very nice home.
Ooh, I need to look that up.
You should.
That's amazing.
Any final thoughts about Metamorphosis, about Hilary Duff?
I love Hilary Duff. I love the impact she had on our childhood with her music and her acting. The Lizzie McGuire movie will always hold a special place in my heart, too. I even watched it before I went on my semester abroad in college.
Which was to where?
Ireland.
Yes.
Not Italy, but I did go to Italy while I was there.
A very European trip. You know, it plays out similarly to the movie, minus the pop star.
Yeah, I just hope she knows the inspiration that she had to the point where people are like, I want to live this out in college. And
sing to me, Paolo.
Even at 27 years old, I can still remember listening to her album in 3rd grade. Like, that's how much I loved that album.
Right. Like, she has a place in our hearts still so many years later.
Yeah, she does.
20 years later. It's 20 years later.
Yeah, exactly 20 years later. Wow.
Long ago, but not forgotten.
It doesn't seem that long ago. No. Honestly.
No, it really doesn't. Time goes so fast, and I'm sure that for these people who made all of these awesome things from our childhood, it feels the same way. And
yeah,
it's funny how time passes, but some of the things that meant a lot to you when you were young still mean something to you as an adult, even if it seems childish or whatever, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I added, because of this episode, I created a new 2000s throwbacks album, and I added a bunch of songs from Metamorphosis to it. So
as you should. As you should.
I was reminded of how much I loved her music.
Indeed. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Stephanie. This has been so fun. I'll have to have you back soon to talk about Bobby Jack or a million other things that we mentioned on this episode, because we share so many nostalgic memories together. Thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, of course. This was really fun to go back down memory lane. So thank you for having me. It was really fun to go back down memory lane. So thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me on this nostalgia trip. If you liked what you heard, follow the podcast to keep tripping through time with us. And if you're feeling extra supportive, Leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at NostalgiaTripPod for bonus content, episode release schedules, and more. Want to hear a certain topic or have a recommendation for the pod? Email us at nostalgiatrippod@gmail.com. Until next time!